All right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, People's Pundit. Been a bit of a long day. I kind of like this new hour, though, even though it's not, it's 2 minutes past it. I like it. You know why? Because we had elections last night, and it allows me to do what I got to do, drive in through the election, and then not have to wake up but early. Plus, I also get to listen to everybody else's incredibly wrong takes all day and then address them in the show later in the day, which is great because it's kind of like having Inside the Numbers, the final say, right? And I like it. I like getting the final say. All right, look, there is good news, of course, for Republicans from last night, and there's bad news for Republicans last night. What is the overall takeaway here? Listen, we all heard it. I'm sure if you've been watching your favorite podcasts and your favorite political shows, maybe even still watch a little cable news here and there, you watched everybody go around with their ritualistic political fellatio acts that they perform on the president after a night like this, right? They all get down on their knees and do their little dance. But I think you know I'm better than that, and I'm not going to do that here. All right, this is the fact. You can't take away the president's win. This is a win for the president without a doubt. But there is something else that happened here last night that is the overall story. And I'm going to blow out that narrative in 2 seconds, not in an attempt to be mad, to be mean to the president or anything like that, but in an attempt to make sure nobody misses the real story. Okay. The president is enormously helpful when he is focused, when he's directed, and he has all of the infrastructure behind his attempts from the base, right? The turning points, the other third-party groups that are true MAGA and true America First and are based and are on the ground helping him get these votes in and helping him push this message. Guys, out of the races that were targeted last night, there were under 100,000 votes cast in them. And I heard a lot of people in the media make a big deal out of that. Like, oh, it's not that big of a data set. That is true, but you can't not dismiss, as I have been telling you to do, not to do. You can't dismiss the underperformances from the Republican Party in the special elections, basically throw it away and just wave your hand and say, it was low turnout. It doesn't matter. You can't dismiss that for two reasons. One, the empirical evidence. These data sets do matter, and we have a wealth of them in these last two election years, 25 and 26. It is conclusive. Republicans are in deep trouble, and they're going to have to pull every rabbit out of the hat in order to avoid getting destroyed. One of them is the message that the voters in Indiana sent last night, which I will get to in a second. But the second reason why you shouldn't, aside from the empirical record, is common sense. If there is low turnout in an election, and yet, you can clearly see the electorate is telling you a story, what common sense tells you what? That those who are most interested in voting when most people are not feel how? Right. This is why you can't dismiss it when Republicans don't show up for a mayoral election in Miami-Dade, because 3 months later, 4 months later, when there are special elections in districts that are close to that area, you shouldn't be surprised when you find out that it's just not enough and Republicans get clapped. All right. It also tells you, by the way, where if the base is not energized and the base is not motivated, then the independents that are associated with that base, every party has right-leaning, left-leaning, Democratic-leaning, Republican-leaning independents. If Republicans are not enthusiastic, Republican-leaning independents will not be enthusiastic. That will result in a larger margin for the Democrats. So I'm also teeing this up for a reason, because one of the things I heard today, I have the perfect example of this stupidity to show you. This is something that if you've been in any politics, but particularly Republican politics for as long as I have, you've heard this stupid excuse and weakness, loser think for many, many years, right? In fact, it dominated the Republican Party until Donald Trump came around and took it over, all right? So first of all, let's get the bird's eye view, okay? Again, not to take anything away from Donald Trump, but here are the 8 races last night for state Senate where the incumbents gave Donald Trump and the Republican Party pushing for the redistricting effort in Indiana, gave them a problem. We're put on a list to target because these were the most egregious examples and easier to flip state Senate seats because they were so Trumpy. All right. Ironically, the one that was only R plus 7.2, which is really, it's not R plus 7 points, it's Trump plus 7 points. And that was in Dan Durnolk's seat in District 1, State Senate District 1. Trevor DeVries smoked Dan. Ironically, it was one of the biggest margins, and I'll show you in a second. It was one of the biggest margins out of all of these races, and yet it was one of the least Trumpy districts, which is really interesting, isn't it? Okay, remember that and keep that thought. So when I make the case that I'm about to make, maybe it'll make a little bit more sense to you. Linda Rogers went down. Jim Buck went down. Spencer Deary, as of right now, is holding on by 3 votes. When Montgomery County came in, I was ready to call it last night for Deary because Montgomery was telling us they had so few votes. But we didn't. We held off because I suspected they were, not together. And I didn't trust the number of the early vote was simple enough. It was like 300 and change, and we knew that. That's what was reported. But as far as what was in for the election day, it's like if they're wrong at all, and Copenhagen carries the election day vote by the margin he carried, even in Tippecanoe, by the way, he was doing better with the election day vote. If he does, he could catch Spencer Deary. So we held off, and I'm glad we did, and I'll show you that race if we get a chance here, but you're literally talking about 3 points, ladies and gentlemen. In Senate District 38, Greg Good is the one declared winner. He was running against Trump-endorsed Brenda Wilson, which there was a little bit of a trick, a play on, look, sometimes political consultants play very dirty tricks. The Rhinos ran another candidate named Wilson with the last name Wilson. At the end of the day, Greg Good got 54% of the vote anyway, but that could still have been impacted by running a candidate with the same last name. You notice Republicans are only smart enough to do stuff like this when they're trying to fend off primary challengers from MAGA, the conservative lane, America First, but they never do it in a general election when they're running against Democrats, and Democrats have stuck like a independent candidate or a tax reform candidate or some crap like that in an effort like they did to Eric Hovda in Wisconsin for U.S. Senate in 24, in an effort to split the insurgent or the base vote. They don't do it to Democrats, but they do it a hell of a lot to their own damn party. That happened last night, and Greg Good survived. All right, Michelle Davis defeated Greg Walker. We're going to skip Senate District 6 for now. Senate District 19, Blake Fletcher defeated Travis Holdman. So Trump came out 5-2. That is his record from last night. And we say, well, Rich, there's Senate District 6 on there. Right. Listen, Jay Starkey ran that campaign. It's unfair to Jay Starkey to give credit for his defeat of Rick Niemeyer, which was incredible. That was one of the most interesting races last night. It's unfair to Jay Starkey to just throw this in the Trump column because Trump gave Starkey a last-minute endorsement when multiple pollsters and multiple projection guys were looking at it and saying, look, I think Starkey is going to run stronger than expected. And then Trump just threw his endorsement at him anyway in an effort to try to take credit for Starkey winning, right? Expected to win. In my mind, folks, that's bullshit. In helping people run for office, seeing friends, that have run for office, it's an incredibly difficult job. It really sucks when there's someone like Donald Trump out there and you want his endorsement, but for some reason or another, he's unconvinced you might, not make it on his endorsement record or some cheesy shit that strokes his ego like that. So it's very difficult for you to do it on your own. And this guy did. And he deserves the credit for that. So I'm seeing all of these people just throw names at the book. That's bull. All right. Now, taking away that, we can add another interesting race to this. And I know I got, here is the Deary race. Okay, let me throw this up here so you can see it. Copenhagen again. All right, he's 4 votes. Okay, so there must have been, I don't know, maybe something from Tippecanoe. I wasn't preparing for the show. Maybe 2 hours ago, it was 3 votes. So there must have been something that happened here. But we'll see how it goes. All right. There's another one, Senate District 15, which is not called, but I want to show you what happened. All right. Here's Liz Brown, the incumbent in State Senate District 15. Darren Voigt is only 25, or now it's less. Excuse me. It's actually less than 20 votes behind. And there's some vote that's trickled here and there. So it's not being called. And of course, people are going to ask for runoffs when you get margins this small. All right. So, I mean, recounts. Did I say runoffs? Recounts, right? So what I'm trying to point out is very simple, that yes, Donald Trump was successful with his 5-2 record in these 7 races, but Republicans were getting thrown out of office all over the state of Indiana in areas where Donald Trump was not being a force. He was not engaged in those races. What does that mean? What am I trying to say here? This was about redistricting. And that is the message, and you better pay clear attention to it. This was about redistricting. This was not about Donald Trump. Does Donald Trump help? Yes, he does. And nobody does it better than him. There's no taking that away from him. But he could have gotten other people. In my mind, actually, it's an example of Trump's endorsement team, again, failing the voters to the degree they could have served them. Because if he would have gotten involved in more of these races, they could have threw out some more bums, right? These guys ran incredible races. Some of them made it. Some of them didn't. They fell just shy. We don't know yet for sure whether or not, he may get 6. We'll see what happens when we get to that recount, because that race with Spencer Deary's seat is very, very close. A tabulation error could cost Spencer Deary his seat. So we'll wait. But right now, it's 5-2. Indiana Republicans had just had it. Like the rest of the country. I went on Benny Johnson earlier today. And the point I was trying to make was this was a great example of burn it down. These people are done with performative politics. This is nothing. What they're asking their party, how to fight, the level they take the fight to Democrats, all they wanted to do is match and equal the fight that Democrats take to them. They're not doing anything illegal. It was perfectly within Indiana's constitution. It's perfectly within Alabama's constitution. It's perfectly legal in Mississippi's constitution. These states, by the way, particularly in the South, more so even in the Midwest, like Indiana, are racially gerrymandered. They're illegal districts. It's the Black Belt. There are seats Democrats have had there over strictly due to the exploitation of blacks based on their race. It's a reverse of what they did during Jim Crow, but it's the same damn shit nonetheless. And it is now illegal. All Republican voters are asking their leaders to do is uphold the law. Fight at the level Democrats fight. There is no doubt in my mind. We wouldn't even have gotten to a primary like the one in Indiana if the roles were reversed and Democrats got their favorable ruling at the VRA in the same set of standards. In other words, if the roles were reversed and the Democratic Party was the Republican Party and that ruling favored them, Mississippi, Alabama, tons of, they would all have, definitely Georgia, which I'm going to bring up in a second, they would have canceled their primaries by now. Voting be damned. Voting be damned. Which we'll get to in a second. There is, again, let me bring up, like I said, unfortunately, there is some bad news. And I could bring up DDHQ, but Ellis Bates, who is over at election analysis for Vote Hub. And then I'm going to show you what Barnes said, because Barnes is right. Instead of going through county, and we can go through county by county in a second, but the reason why I'm not happy to bring this to you guys, but I told you Ohio was a problem. I told you Iowa would be a problem too. You can't see swings with these detailed ethnicities like Norwegian Catholics and other Scandinavians, German Catholics. You can't see these levels of swings and not expect from Pennsylvania to Minnesota to see wild gyrations in the Big Six. These were not red states. These voters went and changed their registration because the the Democratic Party got too crazy, way too radical for them. And two, because Donald Trump's brand of republicanism has been dominant now since 2016. Despite the fact that it hasn't governed dominantly, it has been as like if you're voting for Republicans and a lot of these candidates are endorsed, whether or not it's true, and I would argue it's not true, the perception is that you're voting for Donald Trump's people. All right, a lot, especially among a lot of these people, a lot of these newer and low prop voters that Trump brought out in states like Ohio and Iowa and Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, in Indiana. But it never meant that these states were red, that these states were Republican. That was an illusion. It's an illusion that Democrats suffered during the era of Obama when he won Iowa by 12 points. Only for Donald Trump to go on and win it by an even slightly greater margin in 2024. And of course, we know he swung it in 16. He held it in 2020. Iowa has the largest number of pivot counties out of any state in the United States of America. There are 31 pivot counties, greater than any other state, even though it's white, even though it looks red. It's an illusion. And the Buckeye State, unfortunately, it looks like Republicans are going to learn a painful lesson that the Buckeye State is yet another example, and one that's actually easier, historically, easier for a party to swing back. Now, in the Trump era, that's not necessarily been true. Iowa swung harder in 18 than Ohio did. Republicans got their butts kicked all over Iowa in 2018, whereas they at least held some races in 18 at the House level. Of course, they won the governorship, but they did lose the U.S. Senate race. Now we know it's going to be John Husted against Sherrod Brown. John Husted is getting his ass handed to him with the Epstein class. And by the way, it hasn't even begun. With the Epstein class narrative that we have polled, we have tested, including in that state, and it is deeply, deeply damaging. Husted is in deep trouble. Sherrod Brown is a very, very strong Democratic candidate, and we could see it in the primary vote last night, and I will show you in a second. It looks a lot like Texas, where these just recently dominant Republican areas where J.D. Vance took Tim Ryan's own home from him, now swung back 30 points in participation towards Democrats, while Republican turnout just completely cratered. Vivek Ramaswamy was nominated, and much to the jubilation of Laura Loomer, he's going to lose. Vivek Ramaswamy looks like he's attempting to throw a race. And if you think that's not going to hurt the rest of the ticket, you're crazy. Let's bring it up. Here is VoteHub. And what Ellis is basically saying is two-party turnout in Ohio's 2026 Senate primary mapped by county with 2024 Senate results on the right. Democrats really showed up in the Northeast. Well, that's a fucking problem because that's the tip of the Ohio River Valley. As I have told you before, Mahoning County had a D plus 18.8 electorate. Statewide, it was D plus 4. This is a problem. You lose Sandusky, that's one thing. Even though Trump does remarkably strong in and around that area, which is traditionally blue. You lose Mahoning? By the way, you may notice that Mahoning is the lightly colored county on the northeastern region in Ohio that is blue in the left map and lightly colored pink on the right map. Notice how Trump performs all down the Ohio River Valley. And actually, this is different because this is the 2024 Senate results. See, that's really funny because people who were stupid and didn't listen to what I was trying to tell them about Ohio swinging didn't really want to pay attention to the simple fact that, oh, guess what? Ohio really did not go for Bernie Moreno by the same margin or even close that it went for Donald Trump. Quite the contrary. I'm pulling it up right now, and I'm going to show you. Ohio in the Senate with Donald Trump on the ballot was actually very close. And by the way, they're rerunning that same candidate. Here he is, Sherrod Brown, who used to be, he was the senator. He's running to get his seat back. In 18, he stopped Jim Renacci, although if Josh Mandel, I did everything in my power. Josh is a good guy. I did everything in my power to keep him in that race. I basically begged Josh to let me talk to his wife because it was his wife who didn't want him to stay in the race. All right. Now it's time. What are we? Almost 10 years later? Sorry, Josh. I'm telling the world what happened. His wife wasn't ready and she had some health issues. So she made him back out. If Josh Mandel would have stayed in that race, we were polling it at like Mandel +7. And then when he left, we polled it again, and Renacci was down. The closest Jim Renacci got was like 4 points. And then Brown obviously beat him easily. This is basically a 3.5-point race, folks. It's not basically, it is 50.1 to 46.5. If you round, that is a close election. You may notice, by the way, Youngstown, there's Mahoning right there. Moreno barely won it by 220 votes. That's it. Should we go and check how much Donald Trump won Mahoning County by? They're going to lose Mahoning County. Yeah, they're going to. Youngstown, that whole area of the white working class swing under Barack Obama. By the way, here's Sandusky and Summit. By the way, this Portage. Cuyahoga is obviously blue, but Summit and Portage, I hate saying that, Gauga, Ashtabula, Trumbull County. Trumbull's in trouble too. If you look at those primary results, it's very clear. Democrats have a turnout edge, and they can flip these three counties. Trumbull, Portage, and Mahoning can flip. Wood County, Moreno barely won it. That is a Trump-only red county. Republicans don't win Wood County. That's a Trump thing. Again, why is this kind of disastrous? And frankly, you might hear the tone in my voice just that I'm pissed off. Because this is exactly what I was talking about, warning about, when I said you cannot let the voters see the party as more dominant than Donald Trump. So the party must become more like Donald Trump in the minds of the voters, at least, even if it's bullshit behind the scenes. In the minds of the voters, the party must be transformed into Trump's party. No more bullshit. You can't resist the realignment anymore. You're out of time. And what would be a catastrophe, cataclysmic, is if in the minds of the voters, they at the very best viewed Trump as losing the struggle for realignment, and at the very worst, selling out. And unfortunately, that's what most voters think, the latter. So you can see all through the Ohio River Valley, he did well. Moreno did well, of course, as we get more in the southern part of the Ohio River Valley. Go look at Obama's map. I've been over this a million times. I'm not going to keep spoon-feeding everybody their Gerber every night. People should know the margins in these counties. I've done probably 15 shows on the state of Ohio. This is a disaster. It's exactly what Barnes and I were warning about, while stupid morons who, again, just can't do basic arithmetic, didn't seem to understand that these people were flirting with the Republican Party. Flirting. They weren't even out on a date, let alone married to them. And a betrayal by Trump is going to shatter the foundations of that coalition. And that's whether you agree with it or not. I don't really give a shit. It doesn't matter what you think if you're a Trump supporter. It doesn't matter. Matters what everybody else thinks. And these people have ancestral Democrat vote history going back decades. It is not hard for them to say, you know what, about Fangul, I'm going to go back and vote for the Democrat. One of our locals people today, and then he sent me a personal message. His entire justification for going back to voting for Democrat. He wrote it up on Locals. It's an interesting conversation. You can't get mad at him. You got to take a look in the mirror. Or do more to convince that voter and all the others in Mahoning. Let's not forget what it was like when Democrats were in charge. They're gassing you. They're gassing you up. You're not moderate. In fact, their voters have gotten even more radical. So with this in mind, I hate to say it, but with this in mind, Here are the rating changes from Cook Politico Report. Or no, this is the Crystal Ball. And I have long been hard on these guys. They take forever to make rating changes that favor Republicans and are unfavorable to Democrats. They wait for 15 polls to come out, 80 elections beforehand, and wait for all of this stuff to become more concrete, when they do not give the same latitude to Republicans when it's time to move ratings against them. Unfortunately, looking at some of these, especially Marcy Kaptur in Ohio 9. It's funny. I was messaged J.R. Majewski. We hadn't spoken for a while. But this is exactly what they do. You have John Duarte's wife running in California. It's ridiculous. But instead of just ginning up the base with the right candidate at that time and securing the district, now Marcy Kaptur's, which was redrawn, should be leans Republican, is now a toss-up. Guess what, guys? I agree with that rating. I can't believe I do, but I do. Because the vote last night was, I want to say, well, it was kind of shocking, but it wasn't. It was everything I've been warning you guys about for a year. This would happen. All of these mishandling of events and starting stupid unpopular wars and not focusing on domestic issues and failing to redistrict and losing that fight. These things target specific parts of your coalition. Extremely damaging. 2 out of 3 that I just cited, extremely damaging to the low prop working class voter in the Rust Belt and in the greater Midwest. So it's not a shock. We shouldn't be shocked at all. This should be expected. At this point, I hate to break it to you, but Sherrod Brown is favored to win the Ohio Senate race. Is it by a lot? No, but he is. I don't give a shit what Kalshi says yet. I don't give a shit what Predicted says yet. You know how I feel about betting markets. They're not necessarily more accurate than polls or all the other, predictive indicators and variables that go into election modeling when it's not being perverted with ideology and with bias. It catches up. It takes time. Sherrod Brown is definitely a slight favorite. Democrats are juiced. Republicans need to make changes. They need to take action in order for that to have any hope to change. And coming at it this morning, I got one example, which I think is just it's so perfect. There's always an excuse. There's always a loser think excuse from Republicans and the big cons, the fakes, the losers, the professional losers who destroyed this party until Donald Trump came along and resurrected it. There's always an excuse why we can't do this, why we can't fight this hard. Why aren't we willing to do what Democrats are willing to do? We got to protect our norms and institutions. Guess what the voters just told the state Senate in Indiana how they felt about that? They're done with that shit. And they're done with weak, pathetic, scared. You know what? It's cowardly. Eric Erickson is a coward. He may be trying to protect his little butt buddy, the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp. He's a coward. This is not the first time he's espoused this nonsense. It didn't make sense before the realignment, and it sure as hell doesn't make sense now. This is why, because I'm glad we're done with the fake arguments about how it's illegal and there's been no precedent and we can't do this, we can't do that, right? I'm glad we're at least over that bullshit, because it just went, too many people pointed out what I pointed out on X. You're lying. He did it during COVID. What are you talking about? So now we needed to come up with another argument. And the funny thing is that this was always the real argument. Always sounds something like this. Are you ready? Let me pull it up. I'm telling you, this guy is a textbook coward. He's also part of a group, North Carolina. If you're pissed that you have a Democratic governor, you can blame Eric Erickson and his friends. They were pissed Donald Trump did not endorse their guy, which was a former governor before, Pat McCrory, who lost in an election he should have won, but he handled everything wrong, and he lost in a very close race. Gave us Roy Cooper, who's now going to go on to beat Mike Whatley, by the way. Thank you, Eric Erickson, and your friends. Well, they couldn't stand the idea of an America First black man being the nominee for governor in the state of North Carolina. They even threatened Team Trump before. And they said, if you endorse him, we will dump this shit because we have a bunch of oppo. Instead, they didn't just pass it over to Josh Stein's team. Pass it to CNN. They passed it to Josh Stein's team, who then passed it to CNN. And that's how your candidate for governor ended up with his post about being, you know what, deep in his sister-in-law all over everyone's newspapers. All right, so here's Eric the coward. And that's what I'm going to refer to him as, because this is the cowardly side of the Republican Party that will lead you to destruction. I think a lot of and listen how he attacks people too. I think a lot of Republican activists and the grifters are 30 feet over the runway. Let's consider Georgia. Okay, he has nothing. He makes no reference whatsoever to his prior claim that it was, I'm an election lawyer and I'm telling you it's illegal, because everyone threw the COVID example in his face. Notice he makes zero attempt to rebut us. Nothing on the facts. Nothing. And instead goes for the grifter word. Right now, Democrat turnout is exceeding GOP early voting significantly. Democrats are fired up. The grifters and activists, more name calling, because fat Eric, you want a name call, you fat fucking slob? Answer the original question, you slob. You can't, Mr. Lawyer Boy, because you're wrong. You're lying to everyone. Now at least we're getting past that pretense and we're getting into the actual argument, which is that you are a fucking coward. The grifters and activists want to suspend the election for the sole purpose of adding one extra GOP seat in a year. The Dems are going to take the House of Representatives. Holy shit, ladies and gentlemen. Democrats took every seat in the state of Virginia. Look at what they did in Maryland. For the sole purpose, he's acting like one seat is nothing. Every seat counts. Every seat counts. And it won't only just count for now, it'll count in the future. Because if Republicans lose in November, they won't get anything. They'll regress in Georgia, because they'll have fewer seats in the state legislature. Republicans like him will be even more cowardly. What tiny amount of a spine they have will dissolve by Wednesday morning after the election. One extra seat, the sole purpose. But the GOP leadership understands if they did this. Okay, let me just stop right there again. You stupid little people, your leaders, take me to your leader. Your leaders know better than you. Shut up and stop. Don't you understand? Brian, I want to be, but will never be President Kemp, knows better than you. Don't you get that? Sounds like a liberal, doesn't it? The GOP leader, in their infinite wisdom, their leadership understands if they did this, in addition to the legal problems, that's just going to incite even more people on the left to engage. I'm going to try to do my very best to not go after this argument until I'm fully done reading this. That would cost the GOP some state legislative seats, possibly some statewide seats, and absolutely cost the GOP the conservative seats on the Georgia Court of Appeals and Georgia Supreme Court. Ladies and gentlemen, how have they done in the state elections so far in the state of Georgia? How have they done for commissioners and other seats? They're getting wiped out. They're underperforming 30 points. 40 points. They lost commissioner seats that they have never, ever lost since inception of the office. You're worried about firing them up more? But I digress. But the grifters and activists do not care. They are myopically focused on a single potential House seat at the expense of the state. Impeachment could be one vote, you stupid fat slob. But the grifters know if the left takes the Georgia courts and some statewide seats, the grifters will profit at the expense of the people of the state. understand there are some, of course, I attack them all the time. There are people on the president's team that absolutely are grifters. We all know who I'm talking about. But he's not just talking about who was involved in Indiana last night, who shared in the successes of Indiana last night. Turning Point. That's who would be on the ground doing this. That's who he's referencing. When his shit organizations, his Heritage and AEI and all these other fake ass right-wing think tank experiments and organizations where they just take rich people's money so they can throw parties, drink fancy drinks and cater expensive food, but not actually win any votes. That's where he wants the money to go. Brian Kemp actually cares about the state of Georgia and is trying to tamp down partisan angst to mitigate the passions driving people to vote. The grifters actually want to lose the state so they can get more money from donors. Listen to me very carefully again, you fat fucking slob. Brian Kemp is never going to be president. Get it out of your head. It's never going to happen. And gubernatorial elections are not presidential elections. I would be surprised if Brian Kemp was able to even win his own state in a presidential election cycle. Ditto Marco Rubio, by the way. Let's go. I did write a reply, so let's just go to that instead of me going through one by one. This is the go-to loser argument. That goes a little something like, you can't risk firing up Democrats even more. Ah, yes. We're now back to the go-to loser argument that says, don't do anything to upset the Democrats. We don't want them to come after us. Nominate Mitt Romney, not Rick Santorum. We don't want to fire up the Democrats. Nominate Mitt Romney, not Newt Gingrich. We don't want to fire up the Democrats. Don't nominate Donald Trump. He fires up the Democrats. Folks, this argument, which is decades and decades of the National Review loser crowd, it was wrong before the realignment, which when you make this argument, you demonstrate to everyone who does understand the fundamental nature of this realignment, the key demographics that are relevant to this realignment, not only their margins, but their turnout rates. When you do know that, people who make this argument, you recognize immediately that they fundamentally misunderstand the nature of that realignment. And he does, because of course he doesn't know anything about these groups of people. Democrats are already fired up. And because of that realignment, they start midterm cycles with a turnout edge over Republicans due to vote propensity by base demographics for each group. In other words, this is timid, cowardly argument that hopes not to fire up the Democrats will only result in demoralizing Republicans even more. On top of this how much this stupid war has done. Epstein is done. Caving on deportations is done for, by the way, a lot of big agriculture, Southern GOP donors who support candidates that Eric Erickson backs and works for or tries to. He's had some difficult time finding some clients in the Trump era. All right. Putting all that aside, this argument only would make sense if Republicans had a prayer to win the middle. Understand the importance of what I'm just saying. This would only ever make sense if Republicans were competitive with the middle. Because if Democrats are already fired up and you're taking risks, you're making decisions, you know the base is already depressed. Obviously, you just admitted it, dummy, when you said that Democrats are outvoting in these primaries, right? You already admitted that. You already know you have a turnout and a motivation and enthusiasm deficit, a likelihood to vote deficit. So you're advocating for the status quo to just what? Remain the same and go into November with a deficit anyway and lose? This argument only makes sense If you know, well, maybe I can get the middle. And even though we lose the turnout advantage a little bit, we'll sacrifice a little bit of that and we'll make it up with the middle. Well, guess what? They don't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning the middle in November. The only way to narrow what is a current significant Democratic advantage among independents is to juice base turnout so much that it carries into right-leaning independents, because that's what happens. If your base is demoralized, your leaning independent bloc is demoralized, which will result in a larger margin for your opponent. Independents aren't always changing their margin because they're changing their minds. What really goes into it is who the hell came out to vote. That's if Democrats are more fired up, their independents are more fired up. If your base is demoralized and demotivated, so are your indie leaners. This is a weak mindset. It's a viewpoint that's been predominant among the right before the Trump era, and it's one of the predominant reasons why Big Con was a small band of professional and perpetual losers who were relegated to basically competitive in some regions of the country. They weren't even a national political force anymore until Donald Trump came along to resurrect the party, like it was Lazarus rotting in the tomb. This is a stupid argument. It's always the loser argument. We ran into this in Virginia, by the way. But at least we're making some progress, because at least we're finally being honest and we're no longer pushing the bullshit excuse that governor never going to be president can't legally postpone the primary now that everybody knows that he did it for COVID. Will they challenge it? Of course. And guess what? You walk your ass into the court and you show them how he did it 10 days before the primary in 2020 when there were already tons of early votes cast. And Secretary Raffensperger's statement was, no problem. We will simply hold the early votes that are already cast. They will count, and we will process them on the new day scheduled. That is, will you go back to this crap? And you might as well just go back to just give up. Just give up. Just give up. If you're going to continue down this road with this stupid way of thinking, you're going to regress, you're going to go backward. Just give up. Just throw in the towel. Because there's nothing else the voter, from their point of view, there's nothing else the voter can do to get Republicans to listen. And if they don't want to listen, if the party repeatedly ignores the message that the voter is sending, well, then you're going to die as a party. You're going to die as a party. That's all. That's it. And there's no particular reason why you would continue to blame the voter when they don't believe some bullshit excuse like, Democrats are horrible. They're way worse than us. Don't forget to come out. Because ultimately, Indiana, the reason it's such beyond everything, sending the message to Redistrict and everything like that, it remains to be seen how these challengers who defeated these 6 really so far, probably maybe 7, but 6 so far, one was not endorsed by Trump, Senate specifically. We will see how they perform, how they govern, how they vote. Outside of it, redistricting, because believe you me, they're going to redistrict. They're not going to before it's too late. Indiana's already had their primary, which is why the Supreme Court taking this long was unfortunate, but it's something I warned you about for months. There were all these people who were just thinking that if the Supreme Court rules favorably on the Voting Rights Act, if they rule racial discrimination or racial gerrymandering is unconstitutional, it's somehow going to magically save the House for Republicans, and that's going to be it. Silver bullet. Pow. That was not true. Timing mattered. And even we can see there are at least 5 states that have sufficient time and can do serious damage. Georgia, your 1 seat will take it. Whatever. It could be 1 vote to advance articles of impeachment to the U.S. Senate. Could be 1 vote. How many votes did it take for John McCain to kill, repeal, and replace? 1 vote. Every vote counts. What do you mean just one seat? At risk of losing all of these other races. You fucking lost everything. You've gotten your head stomped in. From 25 to 26, you got your ass completely kicked. What exactly are you preserving? You go into November, the status quo as it stands right now, you lose. You lose in Georgia. You lose everywhere. You lose Ohio. You've got to do something to demonstrate to your voters that you still fight for them. This is the entire lesson, maybe not so much of this administration, because boy, and you can see it. It's very different than 18. Even when Republicans had problems with the national mood because of the betrayal on Obamacare. Thank you, John McCain. John McCain cost them the House in 2018. He actually gained seats in the U.S. Senate. John McCain cost them the House in 2018. It was a betrayal, and they ran against a hypothetical that was impossible to dispute because they didn't pass the bill. You can't prove to people you're not trying to take away the protections for pre-existing condition if your bill fails. And even still, because Donald Trump did everything, his knee-jerk instinct reaction was to defend his base. If he made a stupid mistake, like on bump stocks or something like that, he tried to make it right. By the way, he was going to go with red flag laws. He walked it back. And the lesson is that if you defend your voters, they will defend you. Right now, they do not feel defended. Benny's right. They're still killing Charlie every day. Charlie gets shot again every day. They're still mutilating children every day. Your deep state is still playing their games every day. FISA is not reformed. They violate Woods procedures every day. Voters are not feeling defended. And every day voters have said, get back to the domestic and deal with the problem of the declining country, and tell Benjamin Netanyahu, Eric Erickson's friend, by the way, his homie, by the way, tell Netanyahu to go home. This isn't the Zionist party anymore. We care about our wages, affordability, housing. Maybe I want to purchase a car, lease a car sometime this millennia, thank you. And I want a better paying job. They've been doing this every day for a year, and they have not been defended. So screw them on this. You make your bed. Let's see how that argument Eric is trying to push on to people. Let's see how that argument holds up in November. Because if you want to lose, listen to professional losers like Eric Erickson. That is what he is. None of those people with all their little radio shows and all their little email blasts and their ridiculous spam listing, their ridiculous email spams that they throw out 10 times a day from that website, they don't do shit. They earn 0 votes. They earn nothing. Americans don't even talk in that language anymore. Conservatism's at like 30% in this country. It routinely comes in between 27 and 29%. I don't think we've had it above 32 in months. It's dead. Americans want results, especially the younger Americans who people like him and even the president have seemed to have forgotten are the ones who got you elected. It's a good thing regardless of the fact that we really don't know yet the totality of how they're going to behave in that state Senate. But nonetheless, this is what needs to happen. I want to read something I wrote the other day that I didn't really have time to talk about on What Are the Odds or anything in between. Because, you have all these people winning, and then they realize they're not. Like, it's an announcement on True Social is not gospel. It's not codified law. It's not, immune to court challenges. And then everything they think they're winning on just gets taken away from them, often within like 24 to 48 hours. And there is no winning going on. Ultimately, the right is losing. They have been losing. I was talking to somebody in Pennsylvania about this. It's like so sad if you're a native Pennsylvanian. I mean, I feel so bad for you. your state was really coming around, but you're getting the blowback of losing the long-term battle and of people feeling like you're not fighting for them. And there's only so much, they can do about it, but without a doubt, this is a problem. Let me put this up, and I just want to read this for you because this is the issue. No matter what you do, you will not win until this is addressed. Let's go invoke the old, good old Abe, right? Let's go invoke honest Abe here because he was right about something very simple that he said. You simply cannot defeat your enemy if your enemy lives within your own ranks. If your house is divided, you can't. If your enemy is united and you're divided, not only are you divided, but you are infiltrated by that enemy, you're fucked. You have zero chance to win. And in its very basic form, that's what's wrong with the Republican Party. That is why it has been ineffective. If we're being honest, despite the fact that there's a lot of things Donald Trump did good this administration, particularly within the first 5 months. After that, it's been a shit show. If you're being honest, you're being objective, you'll admit to yourself that Republicans are now two-time losers in the greater war for the direction of the country overall in the Trump era when they had control of all three branches. Meaning, despite the fact that Trump led them to non-divided government, unified government control, not once, but twice, they were unable to change the overall direction of the country in their favor. Democrats, maybe their advance slowed, which means the decline of the country slowed, but nevertheless, they continue to advance. The march of the left is what we call it over here. The march of the left has continued. It hasn't stopped. It hasn't even been reversed. It may have been slowed, but the march of the left goes on, has gone on, and the decline of the country has continued. And a major reason for their failure, Republicans as a party, is that they have phonies in their ranks to a degree that simply does not exist in the Republican Party. They have traitors that you do not see in the Democratic Party. You would never see what happened in Indiana happen in a blue state if the roles were reversed. Never. Never. You wouldn't even see a single impeachment vote if Joe Biden was brought up on articles of impeachment. You would see not a single Democratic vote. You would not see a blue state senator voting against an amnesty. Like we will see many, many red states. Look, John Cornyn is prepared to spend 20% of the total GOP budget for 2026 to defend his terrible record against Ken Paxton's primary challenge in Texas. What does John Cornyn want to be reelected to do? Support an amnesty that the president's friends and donors are convincing him to support and sign after the midterm elections. He's very reluctant to do it now because he does not want to depress the MAGA base any more than it is, although he truly has stupid sons of bitches like John Cornyn, his own advisors who work for John Cornyn, and real half-wit twits like Maria Salazar. And then fake, I wouldn't say fake pollsters. They are real pollsters, but they're just lying in order to get money from PACs. He's not doing it. He's reluctant to do it, despite all of those people telling him that actually, Mr. President, this is going to help us win back the Hispanic vote that we've lost so far. It's horseshit, of course. This problem also persists in the judiciary branch as well, though that only ever reveals itself when the legislature fails, right? So only when there is a betrayal in the legislature, even though it's Republican government, Republican majorities, it fails to defend their base, advance their agenda. It fails into change the course, the overall course, the direction of the country in their favor. That's when, of course, we'll have to go to the courts. And then Republican voters are forced to hold their breath and hope they win a narrow 1, maybe 2 vote majority in the U.S. Supreme Court. But we see again, this problem does persist in the judiciary as well. There are Republican appointees in the district court level who routinely rule against the base. Routinely. Do Democratic judges do that? Democratic appointed judges? No. How many times has Justice Ketanji Jackson, or whatever the hell her name is, Jackson, Brown Jackson, I can't even fucking keep track of it anymore. How many times has Ketanji voted against the left? Colorado, even? What happened there? I mean, it has to be, that's it. That's the only time I can think of. I really cannot think of another example, especially not in a landmark case, of when the liberal justices went against what was politically expedient for their party. They make raw power moves, and they don't give a shit what it looks like. They don't give a shit if it risks firing up the Republican base. They don't give 2 shits. There's no pussies like Eric Erickson on their side. They're going for the throat. In both his terms, and this is a major problem, and that's why it was so nice to finally see last night. It was nice. I got a little nostalgia. But, again, if we're being objective and we're being honest, in both his terms, Donald Trump, the president, unfortunately has contributed to this main cause of failure, including, which results, by the way, in things that include his own personal policy failures, repeated impeachments, and will result in what's soon to include a future attempt at impeaching and removing him that does have a real shot to remove him from office. Because if you thought elected Republicans were traitors, betrayers, and let you down now, anytime in the past, wait until you see how they act when the fear of Donald Trump as the future leader of the party is removed from all consideration. Not to mention, lawmakers are fairly open about how much they are mistreated in their minds. They feel they are mistreated by the White House and they hate them. This is not a secret. Anyone who works in the media, in DC, covers this beat, anyone who works in politics, you know, and you have friends that are congressmen, you know, you have clients that are, everyone knows this is the case. The Republican conference can't stand the people at the White House. They don't like Mike Johnson either now. They've kind of lumped him into that, and some members of leadership, but they feel like the White House is condescending to them. And it's why there's so many retirements, frankly. They know it's going to be a tough year, and they're not going to take, they're not going to go through this for them. There's a lot of bad blood. Some that aren't retiring are just itching for when they can get a chance to vote to convict to get them back. I know and do speak to somebody at the White House who's, I don't want to say it's not his only job, of course, but he's on a daily counts votes for how many people, just judging by things they've done, the relationship, the current state of the relationship between the president and them, or the legislative, the liaisons from the White House down, the legislative team. I mean, he constantly counts how many senators would be conviction votes, how many congressmen would be impeachment votes. There's a lot of them. And Trump's new friends are going to turn on him with the quickness. To that point, let's say a few names here. Andy Barr, John Cornyn, who I brought up before, Lindsey Graham. I mean, I could go on and on. Should we bring up who he endorsed in Texas over Brandon Herrera? Gonzalez? Definitely an impeachment vote. I mean, I could just go. There are so many. We can go down the line. These are examples of Trump actively contributing to this problem. The list is very long. If we include the House, not just those names, I just said a few names from the House, and over the years since Trump has been by far the most powerful endorsement in U.S. politics. The fact of the matter is, without James Bacon, this is the real, folks, without James Bacon, his endorsement record sucks. And it's born of considerations that do not include what's best for the movement or the direction of the country. This term, it has been exclusive to how MAGA haters like Chris LaCivita get rich. It's been exclusive to how rich can these MAGA haters get. His corny win-loss record that does nothing, it benefits nobody except for him because it strokes his ego, et cetera, et cetera. Bullshit considerations like that. Everyone knows that Donald Trump in the past and this cycle has supported people who are expected to support his impeachment and conviction. And worse. Yes, there is a worse. These people will plague his voters, the very same voters who kept him out of prison. These people will plague his voters for years to come. They will betray his voters for years to come. They will hurt his voters for many years to come. Nate Morris got an ambassadorship to leave the race in Kentucky. Oh, how fucking great. Ambassadorships last as long as a presidency does. And in this case, it may not last very long at all. Senators are in for 6 years at least. Somebody like Andy Barr is going to get flush, stuffed with AIPAC money. He's already flush with it. He will be incredibly difficult to remove, even if unpopular. Defeating an incumbent is very hard. The bottom line is this. It's a nice little saying and everything. But Republicans, and this includes Donald Trump, you will never make America great again, let alone even stop or halt the march of the left until they get serious about fixing this issue, about addressing this issue, which essentially means you have to drop the act and not be frauds. The rest is just bullshit. Until that changes, it's just fucking entertainment. It's just a game. Means nothing. You're not winning, you're losing. All right, with that in mind, shall we go to some of the stars? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And I don't know, Gillian, I know you've been around a while. Me and David Giglio, I specifically remember when that came out, me and David Giglio both said publicly, what Madison Cawthorn is saying is not liable. Like, he's not making it up. And that's a big problem with a lot of these people. A lot of these people got huge files over at the FBI. They could never vote to reform FISA. They could never vote to hold the FBI's feet to the fire on following or not following, in their case, the Woods procedures, violating the Fourth Amendment. They're never going to do it because the FBI has a file on them. Like I said on Benny Johnson's show earlier today. I mean, if you have a file with the FBI who caught you in a hotel room with a 16-year-old girl bumping lines off the left ass cheek of a 16-year-old girl, you should go home to your fucking wife. Let somebody else hold the office. And I'm not saying they'll be perfect either, but not everybody's got to be Charlie Wilson, bro. Okay? We're not in that era anymore. This government is these representatives who are already underrepresenting you. They have been captured by lobbies and or blackmailed into submission. It is as bad as you think it is. You know, I never was a huge fan of hers. We followed each other. We interacted. I was cordial to her when I saw her. And I think I met her like twice in public. Once with, I think it was Jack, briefly. I think it was at a TPUSA event or something. I was never like a huge fan of hers. I'm talking about Ashley St. Clair. And I certainly don't approve of what she did. But I am laughing my ass off at her TikTok videos because she's telling the truth. That last one, come to my beach house, baby. You all know who that is. Can we stop pretending that shit ain't Mills? Everyone knows it's him. Everybody. Everyone knows about the beach house spiel. Everyone knows about Mr. Evangelical Christian values, who somehow with this weird conversion to Islam anyway, but still pretends like he's a Christian evangelical and a super veteran. And, oh, I'm the best dad and father figure in the world. And I'm a family guy. Running around trying to prick everything that's 20 years old. It's true. Madison Cawthorn was right. He was right. That was not a lie. All right. The market manipulation has to stop. Trump lost. The market manipulation is disgusting. You want to know why the Epstein class stuff is going to work so much? Donald Trump is protecting the Epstein class because of his friends in Israel and his donor friends. And he's manipulating the stock market to make all of those people rich and starting wars to make all those people rich. It's a very, very easy story to tell. It's obvious. It's very obvious. You know, this is a great question, actually, by Gray. I'd like to pull this up, Gray, if you don't mind. If you could give me 2 seconds, I will make a crosstab live to show you what we're looking at, okay? And soon, I think what we want to do, since we have the MAGA identification question for independents, like, did you previously identify as MAGA? I think we've been talking about this, and we don't just willy-nilly drop a question in the questionnaire, especially if it's something we're going to track. We make sure we're very, not a huge company over here, okay? But obviously, I have the last say and final say in everything, but I do take people's suggestions, criticisms, and then, of course, I do have very few at this point peers, especially my elders, who I do still value their opinion, even though I won't always take it. But we have a process here, and we're in that process right now to try to figure out what is the best way to approach independents to see how many of them align with this group that I'm about to show you right now. All right, so let me go to my screen so I can pop this up and show you. All right, I'm gonna get X out of here. All right, I'm going to make a cross tab right in front of you guys real quick because it goes to the question Gray is asking. So bear with me. All right. Wait a minute. Let me just make sure I'm not showing any personal identifiable information. It doesn't look like it. There's the 2020 vote against crosstabs. Yeah, I think we're good. Creating a new crosstab. I'm going to use the weight variable. Of course, it's under the category survey weights. Shocker, I know. National registered voter. Political identification is what I'm looking for here. I mean, we could do all this. We could put it all in there just for you guys to look at. Let's do ideology. We'll do Republican identification. Locals, I'll send this to you after. I'll generate a link and I'll send it to you after. Probably should have had Democrat first because there are more Democrats. Now, there wasn't before. There are now. Thank you, neocons. Good job, neocons. Everybody, every time we see these things, we got to give these neocons a round of applause. Okay, we can't let them go without getting credit where credit's due. All right, so there we go, right there. Row number 1, Democrats 37, Republicans 33.5. After Republicans were damn near 40%, in November of 2024. Good job. Let's give them a round of applause, guys. Let's give them a hand. They deserve it. Good job, neocons. That's all you. Good job. The fact that Republicans are now seen as the party of anti-free speech and censorship. Good job, neocons. Come on, guys. Everybody together now. Let's give them a round of applause. Let's cite a few of them specifically, just so we give them credit where it's due, right? Good job, Mark Levin. Great job. Ben Shapiro. Step forward. Take a bow. Randy Fine. Dave Rubin. Come on, guys. Celebrate. Fucking schmucks. All right, party detail. Here's Democrat. This is where I'm going with this, okay, brother? This is actually a good month, by the way, and I'll add, you know what? Let's add some let's add demographics. We will have to cross everything at some point here. We will. You'll see what I mean in a second. Let's start with sex. age. Where are you? Age detail. Now let's add sex by age. Boom. Now we're going to add race. Where's race detail? I know you're here. You're up here, aren't you? Yes. Race detail. Okay. Then we got to get race by sex. Okay. Now we'll do the parties again, and it will look weird because, oh, I forgot party by sex. Oh my God. Well, I'll throw it in here. Party detail. I'll put it in the row too, because you should be able to see it in the row. It'll be cool. There we go. Party by sex. Ideology. We'll do Dem identification first, so we can put all the Republicans listed in a row. You'll see some of these will obviously cross to 0. All right. In other words, in the cross tab, you will see that they will be 0 because you're looking at the same columns and rows. All right. Identification. Here's what I meant, by the way, Gray. See how it's like this? These are asked of independents. Were you previously America First or MAGA? We also should be asking those who say, like, if we go to, let me hit save real quick so I don't screw this up. What are we going to call this? Big data poll, national poll, April 25th to 28th, 2026. By the way, we do have new polling we could show you soon. It's not getting any better. Party identification details, we'll call it for now. I'll probably figure out something else to call it later, but let's call it that. All right. And let's close the editor so it updates by itself, and it's super easy. Okay. If we get to this question, which is asked of independents, if they say that they are an independent or something else, we say, would you say your views are more closely aligned to the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, equally close to the Republican and Democratic Party? By the way, they're rotated. So for the critics, you can stick it up your ass. We use variable URIDs that they rotate them, or share a little in common with either. Republicans is just terrible. This is actually better. Oh, no, they are the last. I just did it in order. Yeah, they are the least smallest group. All right, so it doesn't matter what they add, what they answer to this. If they are an independent, they get this question, and then they get this one. Did you ever previously identify with America First or MAGA, but now no longer do? We need to ask them something akin to Democratic identification, because I want to know how many, to go to your question, how many independents, especially those who are left-leaning, who say, no, I lean more towards a Democrat. I want to know how many of them identify with socialism in various formats, all right? So anywhere on a given month between 5 and 8% of self-identified Democrats will just identify as a socialist flatly, not quantified or, qualified with some, precursor rebranded slogan or term like democratic socialism, flat out socialism. And then between usually 52 to maybe 56, 58% will identify as democratic socialists. The phone is even worse, by the way. On the phone, it's a lot more. There are other modes of collection that bring it down every month, but on the phone, it's rather terrifying. This month, 17.6% identified as traditional liberals. This averages about 14.5%. This is a month that's a little bit high. We're going to start to go back and we'll plot this the same way we're going to plot what percentage identified as MAGA over time. I haven't done it yet because it's misleading. If you have 55% of Republicans who identify as MAGA, but at that time, Republican identification was only 33%, like it is now. That's less than 50% who identify as MAGA if Republicans are 40% of the electorate, like they were last year. You understand what I'm saying? So it can be a little bit misleading, and people will look at a line graph, because one idiot wannabe actually did that about a month and a half ago. Do you remember? And I had to quote tweet him and say, you're a fucking retard. You don't know how to, do basic arithmetic. And by the way, he was actually wrong on just several things that he copied down. The same way he was wrong about the Hispanic vote share. He's like, Hispanics were this percent. I'm like, bro, that's not even my final poll. What are you talking about? Like, can you read? And so I'm always thinking before I put something out, is this going to confuse someone, or worse, will this be used by bad faith actors like them who they pretend they're analysts, but they're not, they're stupid shills? Will it be used by people like that to mislead people? So I have to, figure out how exactly I want to do this. But this is terrifying, right? So we're at 58%, which is typical. 6 in 10 is roughly typical. 6 in 10, Gray, of the Democratic Party who say that they are socialists. All right, let's just do some quick math real fast. There is some shit, some other questions by Gallup and others that is even more concerning. But at 60% of 37 it identifies with socialism. You're over 1 in 5 Americans already that identify as socialists. There's also a difference between what you flatly identify with and what you would tolerate if it gave you what you wanted. And this is where Republicans are in real trouble. There aren't that many socialists in New York City, guys, to suggest that Mamdani would win so easily. They wanted someone to address their concerns. So they were willing to take a risk on a guy who they knew was a socialist. And stupid Republicans are running around going, but he's a socialist. Look, busted, bombshell. We got him doing a Zoom with the Democrat Socialists of America, and he's labeled as the Democratic Socialist of America. Busted, it's over. No, it's not, because people don't give a shit. Socialism isn't scary anymore. Even communism doesn't scare Americans. The truth is, Republicans should never have forfeited the word fascist, the label fascist. They should never have forfeited that, because by its political and economic definition, both Democrats are fascists. Do some Republicans, especially that rhino wing, represent fascism? Absolutely. And by the way, Eric Erickson, Mark Levin, all those guys, they are fascists. They're calling everybody else fascist. But if you support mass surveillance state and a phony private sector with the veneer of capitalism, especially in industries like the military industrial complex and police state power industries, if you select those private sectors having the veneer of capitalism, but in truth being just bullshit puppets dictated by government, that's a fascist. Communist is public control, so it's just these entities just become owned by the government, which they call public ownership, even though it's ridiculous. Fascism doesn't take it that far. Fascism allows so-called private leaders and private sectors, but they're taking their orders from the government. I hate to tell you guys, but we are basically a quasi-fascist nation in those terms. See, people hear fascism and they immediately jump to like Nazism. Nazism was a specific form of fascism that also dealt with the ethno-religious component. That's different. The Japanese Empire was a fascist empire. Then again, they never were really keen on immigration either. But, whose culture is surviving and whose culture is not. So who are we to tell them they're wrong? But the fact of the matter is the government dictates production, even capital expenditures, labor, right? All of that. That is the definition. So what are the odds America becomes a socialist country? Honestly, and I know this is going to be scared, but I'm showing you some data to back this up here. And also, again, the link's in the description. If you have not bought Burn It Down, that is what this is. It's 50-50. Honestly, it may even be 60-40, Gray. I may be being too optimistic because part of me wants to believe that given the opportunity, Americans will choose right-wing populism instead of left-wing populism. And they clearly will. However, Republicans are losing because the right-wing populist faction on their side is losing. So so to me, to answer your question, it's not 50-50. It's probably closer to 60-40 or 65-35, because the right can't stop America from becoming a socialist country if it can't impose its right-wing populist brand on its own party. Okay? Because that one is the only brand that's effective at stopping the left. So again, I'll argue this and burn it down, brother. It's either MAGA or it's Mamdani. And I don't mean this fake new version, Mark Levin and Donald Trump's fake new version of MAGA. I'm talking about real MAGA, national resurgence, or collapse under Mamdani. Will Trump and Vance be convicted by the Senate? Honestly, I think the odds are right now are probably a little bit better than not. All right. Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 55% is a good bet, because there will, just think about what I just read before. All right. They will not behave the way they behaved the first time. Once the threat of Donald Trump no longer being the leader of the Republican Party is removed, they're going to be themselves. Lindsey Graham, his buddies, Lindsey Graham, John Cornyn, tons of them. And we could go down the list right now. Lisa Murkowski, if she doesn't just leave and caucus with the independents, which she probably will, especially if Graham Plattner beats Susan Collins, her friend. If that's true, she's going to go over. Especially and definitely if it matters to the control of the Senate. That is what she has said to multiple people. That is from the horse's mouth. I know it for a fact. That is not gossip. That's not making shit up, which I never do. She has told multiple people that if it dictates control of the Senate, she's out. She's going to caucus with Democrats as an independent, like friggin' Angus King. Or so-called Bernie Sanders, being a Democratic Socialist. That's what she'll do. And had said in one occasion that she is much more inclined to do so if Susan loses in Maine. So the odds are probably a little higher than not. Now, Vance, too, I don't know. We'll see. That one's a little tougher. I do think that Democrats have a plan for it, and I did my best to warn the vice president what I know those plans to be. I don't know that he took sufficient steps to protect himself. I'm saying that nicely. I don't believe he did. And the only question in my mind is, we have never seen a party try to remove both the president and the vice president. Why? Because they tend to, even if they get the president, they're thinking, well, I got that scalp. I don't want to push my luck too far. I don't want the American people to, I don't want this to backfire. Removing an entire administration may be tough. Now, if it looks like things are turning around and by some miracle, Vance looks like he's, of course, going to be the favorite for the nomination if he decides to run, and he actually is going to win in 2080. He's actually more than has a prayer. It's likely Vance is going to win. Then they'll try to go for it. I believe that 100%, because they'll try to lock him out and prevent him from being able to run. Again, Democrats play for keeps. Republicans play patty cake like a bunch of fucking pansies. May 6, 2026, Borders Bazaar, Tom Homan indicated, that President Trump is discussing legal status for migrants with his cast. Say it isn't so, Rich. I'd love to say it isn't so, Rocket Boy, but it is so. And I don't know if I have this clip from Andrew, but I did the Charlie Kirk show with Andrew Colvett to blow what happened and how this came wide open. I will also say, sadly, Rocket Boy, I participated in the polling project that is being manipulated right now to convince the president that it's a good idea. And I only ever agreed to do it because I got concrete assurances, promises that they would not go behind my back and deliver the results to the president without my explicit okay with their analysis. And the only reason why I know, and I have no problem saying, I know, dude, Andrew got call after call after call after I did that. They were pissed. But I'm going to just say it because I'm tired of, I'm not playing this game anymore. I'm just tired. There's keeping things in confidence, and then there's just lying to people. And I'm not doing that. The only reason why I know is because I suspected they were going to do this to me. I went to the vice president and I said, do me a favor. Tell me if this happens. This is what I suspect is going to happen. It will be detrimental. You could kill what little bit is left of MAGA if you do this. Please tell me if they go behind my back and they do it. And they did. And he told me. So, I mean, not that I didn't know anyway, because then they called like 2 days later and admitted it, probably because they know that I have relationships with people and that they were never going to get away with it. They would get away with it at the time, but eventually I would find out. It was dirty. I still have, by the way, I still have the text message after I did that show with Andrew and blew the lid off it. We weren't intentionally trying to do that. Blah, 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 blah. Bullshit. You're a liar. You know the deal. That's what they were doing, folks. They were trying to use me because everybody knows I'm like the best MAGA pollster in the country. Like not that I'm MAGA, but like everybody knows that I poll MAGA the best. And they needed my stamp of approval because it wouldn't have been believable if it was just them. So they gaslit me and lied to my fucking face. And you can't do that. I don't let people get away with that. You lie to my face, I'm going to blow you up. And I haven't even begun to blow them up yet. That interview was number one. And I have no problems telling you guys this. Again, Emerald's story is right. I have spoken with CNN about it. There are specific timelines of things that must go on. I'm not done yet. There's a lot of wreckage to come for your damn client, for your client to betray 77 million voters so your fucking client can get cheap labor. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And I'm talking to the pollsters there. Why don't we word it like this? Why don't we report it to the president like this? What if we just say, after all those three questions, what if we just say we combine those three and that could be like total support? No, it can't. Because initially they said, no, they don't want it. And now those three added riders onto the bill. What if it didn't apply to a single person who came here under Joe Biden? And what if it explicitly barred these people on the pathway from being able to vote for a period of 10 years, 20 years? We did 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to whatever. I can't remember exactly how many. We did increments all the way up to like 20 years, 20 plus years. Specific industries. What if? And they wanted to add all those what ifs, get the total with all those what ifs, and then show the president, look at how much of MAGA will support it. I do not play games like that. I do not manipulate results like that. Ryan PD up on locals. Quick question, fam. What do you think of advising Royce White to hang that Epstein class dog tag around Michelle Tafoya and Adam Schwartz? Honestly, former SEAL and currently engaged to the daughter of Marvin Windows in the Minnesota U.S. Senate race. The Epstein class narrative is very powerful. I mean, especially those who are underfunded compared to some of their opponents. It works even better. I would definitely use it. Absolutely, I would. Look, they're using it against Husted. What if somebody who was actually a decent candidate would have ran in Ohio and would have used it against Husted and buried him in the primary before Democrats tarnished him up the way they have now? Now you're going to lose the Senate seat. Right now, again, can Husted win? Yes. It's not totally done in my mind. But Brown is a favorite. This is a good one right here. It's a comment more like it, but it's a good comment by Dread Robert. Carton Bass, Brandon Johnson, Jacob Fry, Mamdani cities are dominated by Democrats, and they're consistently electing self-proclaimed socialists. I wonder if coalescing, is that what you meant? I wonder if coalescing all liberal socialists helped it along, like saying people who don't like Israel are anti-Jewish sped this along, or if it was going that way all the time. That's a good question. Huh? You know, I mean, I'm tempted to just answer it off the fly, but I would like to kind of check that, you know, by check the timeline on that a little bit more in detail. But there's no doubt that they did. Like, liberals have done this a period of times, okay? They started calling themselves liberals. Then they changed their name after liberal got toxic to progressive. Then progressive got toxic after the progressive era, and they went back to liberal. All right. Then they went back again later in our century and started using the word progressive. And now it's like, they are using it now to this day still. Nobody calls themselves a traditional liberal anymore, as you saw the numbers on the poll itself. But like, the people in DC and the people, the consultant class, even, they might say it publicly because they think it makes them sound more moderate, but they use the word progressive, and they have no problem in private throwing around democratic socialists. They think that is their rebrand. They're rebranding socialism. And this is the foolish thing. Here's this more dumb stupidity from Republicans. Here they are subsidizing the experiments in Europe with our so-called NATO allies, allowing the left in this country to pitch democratic socialism as a viable system of government. What they're not telling you is, if those countries who are doing that, where it's working, Bernie, it's working, if you made those countries pay for their own defense, they would never be able to handle the spending obligations that their government has to be those democratic socialist utopias. So we're over here subsidizing our own end. And they've never thought about it like that. You want to send foreign aid over to this one, that one, the other one, even Israel, Robert. Israel is fucking left wing. I don't care if they elect Likud or not. Social and even economic policies in Israel are left wing by our standards. Healthcare for everybody. Tel Aviv is a gay man's paradise. Like, what are you talking about? This isn't a conservative country. Likud has used the national security issue and the hawkishness because of their reality of where they live and the reality of their own defense, their security problem in where they're located in the Middle East. They've used that successfully to put together not majority coalitions, by the way. I mean, let's face it, Likud wins 30% of the vote, man. They've managed to do that. And it makes them look like, oh, but God, their coalition is put together. Governing coalition includes Orthodox Jews. They must be so uber conservative. Not by our standards, they're not. Israel is left wing. Remember when Tucker said that it was more left wing than Maduro, and Maduro was supposed to be the socialist leader, especially conservative? Everybody lost their shit. Well, guess what? He's right. It's like we can't even have an intellectual conversation anymore. Maduro didn't allow that woke bullshit in his country. You're not going to see gay pride parades like you will in Tel Aviv. Rainbow-colored dildos walking their way down the street. And you're not seeing that in Venezuela, folks. That's a good question, though. I'd like to look at that timeline a little bit more, but there's no doubt that they have successfully rebranded socialism into what they call that today. Whoa, look at all these Rumble rants. And by the way, I just read all the super chats. I got through the tips on locals. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the tips. Really do appreciate them. That's why I try basically every time to read every single one of them. And now I'm on to the Rumble rants, which I also thank you for. By the way, the wallet is there. I immediately saw that. We do take Bitcoin. I'm not a crypto guy. I do have some crypto, diversified the best I can, but I'm not a crypto guy. But of course, yes, you can tip through. By the way, on locals, you can too, but then you can change it into coins, and then they convert it or whatever at the end of the month. But the Rumble wallet is very cool, and I did see people have been tipping with crypto, and that's fine. I'm probably just gonna leave it in my Rumble wallet for now. But Andrea 62703, according to Larry Sharp. By the way, I've got to get in touch with Larry Sharp. They've reached out to me now several times, including through Viva. You guys a fan? For people who don't know, Larry Sharpe is a libertarian candidate for governor of New York. Independents have a unique opportunity this year to gain traction. What are your thoughts on his claim? And that's what Andrea is saying, according to Larry Sharpe, the libertarian candidate, independents have a unique opportunity. I actually do agree. Now, whether they do or not remains to be seen, but I do agree that they have a unique opportunity here, which is why I said to Elon Musk the other day on Monday, if you are still serious about the America Party, I mean, I'm at the point where I will tell Elon Musk what to do. I will tell him how to do what he wants to do. He was kind of running. It's not hard to destroy the Republican Party, guys. It's relatively weak and centralized. Without Trump, it's going to fall apart anyway, I fear. So, I'm at the point now where, I read stuff like, and I don't mean to blow him up, but I read what like Owen posted on Locals. I hear that every day in the field in polling. What Owen wrote, the shorter version, I hear in interviews every single day. There are just way too many people who would rather watch the Republican Party burn than support it again, and this is a problem. It doesn't mean you can't work with what's left of the Republican Party as you're dismantling it with creating this new party, and there are ways to do it where you don't have to go about it the hardest possible way, which is always the way that everyone thinks is how you replace a party. In truth, there are other ways. Book Club, we talked a little bit about this. And it's also time for real America First, real MAGA, real America First, to start running as Trump breakaways, as Blue Dog Democrats. So, for instance, I think David Giglio should take on Costa next year. Not this one because deadline's over. He should run in 2028 against good old Jim Costa, Jim, right? Yeah. And he should run as someone who broke from, because it is a Democratic area, who broke from Trump, but is America First and is a Blue Dog Democrat. Like, I think David should do that. I do. I think it's time for Republicans to start giving Democrats a dose of their own medicine. There's no perversion of the ranks of the Democratic Party with Republicans or with MAGA, with America First. Not even mainstream conservatives. It doesn't exist. Meanwhile, the Republican Party is completely perverted with Democrats, including the one David ran against the first time, John Duarte, who's now got his family running. These are mid-level GOP donor never Trumpers who hate Trump's guts. And you might remember him along with good old Mike Garcia. I predicted would lose in 24. The worst part about Duarte is that my prediction came true to the T. That if Republicans did not nominate David Giglio, you were going to watch John Duarte, even if he was to win in 22, you'd watch him lose in his first attempt at re-election in 24 because he sucks among Hispanics and other working class MAGA voters, who, by the way, David did have. That was David's entire coalition was built off of those non-white MAGA only voters. That's every vote he got in that primary is where that came from. Duarte beat him because probably bullshit, but they ripped him off. I don't want to get too much into it, but they needed David's 15. He had this block, 15% of the total electorate that was Hispanic. They needed that block. Trump was winning that block. Duarte was not. David was winning it. Duarte was not. So hurrah, hurrah. It's like the perfect Pyrrhic victory explanation. I've been saying this lately, that these rhinos and, the Chris Lasivitas even, they're like running these primaries. Massey's primary is a great example. So what? Even if Ed Galrin wins, they lose. It's a Pyrrhic victory. You're costing your coalition by using these, in this case, small share, boomer, old white boomers. That's it. And they vote in primaries, so you can actually defeat the person who has a bigger coalition in just a primary, especially a closed primary. You can defeat them in those primaries, but it's a Pyrrhic victory because that candidate will just go on to lose anyway. That's exactly what happened in John Duarte. While Donald Trump carried the district by 5 points, including his own county, fucking loser, lost his own county. Oh, my God. This fool was my first ever block on Twitter. Can't stand Erickson. Oh, yeah, he's a total clown, man. This guy, these are the losers. Like, honestly, Republicans have to drop the neocons. And Andre, I will get back with Dave Viva Fry. I'll get back with him, and I'll get Larry Sharp on. You want to talk to Larry Sharp? I mean, he's been wanting to talk for a while. I've gotten multiple messages from people about him, like, hey, because they don't like the candidate for governor, Bruce, over in New York. Donald Trump's, here's another humiliating embarrassment by LaCivita and the endorsement team for Donald Trump. It was all about the PAC money, and it's all about the Jewish donor money, because of course there's money there. So it's all about the AIPAC money. That's all they care about. Meanwhile, they didn't even notice. This guy picks a vice presidential running mate. I mean, a lieutenant governor running mate, excuse me. And they didn't even vet it. The guy filed to run against Donald Trump in New Hampshire in the primary. It's humiliating. K-Cap. I don't know what everyone's getting their panties in a bunch over. Nick is right. Vivek is a bigger threat to the white working class in Ohio than the Democrat is. He's giving you Chamber of Commerce veiled as meritocracy. Oh my God, I hate to tell you, but I know, and they just don't have the balls to say it, because this is what they do. They're right-wing influencers, especially one specifically has totally hitched his wagon to Trump. The other one, not so much. He's definitely more independent, and he has been tweeting things. It's like, is Vivek attempting on purpose to throw this election? But I know multiple people who agree with Nick Fuentes on that. And I'm talking about, OG MAGA people. And for those who don't know what we're talking about, let's see if I can maybe find that clip. And I think I can, if I just go, Fuentes Vivek, everyone will be able to see what we're talking about here. Okay, well, here's a tweet we could put up right away, actually, and then there's a video. So let me drop this out of here. Let me get rid of the crosstab. All right, and I'll put this up, and we'll read his tweet, then we'll listen to an audio clip. And you guys, I'm curious to see what your thoughts are, because, again, we hear this a lot. I mean, from a lot of people. So Nick Fuentes tweeted, and this was just 6 hours ago, the GOP thinks they can force us to elect a Hindu Indian anchor baby billionaire who blames lazy Americans for being destroyed by free trade and mass migration. We can afford to lose Ohio for 4 years if Vivek Ramaswamy is retired forever. Never Vivek. All right. Politics and Poll Tracker 18 hours ago clipped this thing, but usually I get it from Fuentes updates. That's Uncle Ramaswamy. Yeah. Okay. There are two. This one I'm going to play first. We'll see if they overlap. Okay.
There's going to be
hold on. Let me make it bigger. Okay. And there we go.
So what is the alternative? Well, not everybody's going to like this. But in November, there's going to be two candidates that can win on the ballot in Ohio. And it is Acton on the Democrat side and Ramaswamy on the Republican side. If it can't be Ramaswamy, I think you know what it has to be. And so I'm going to be calling on everybody to be going to Ohio, and we're going to give people a choice. You have an option. Stay home. But I think if you really want to make a difference and help, we're going to have to hold our noses. And we're going to have to vote Democrat.
Oof. Okay. So there it is. I've heard a lot of people say this. Let me just see if this is a different one. I mean, I don't think we have to play it. Whoops. Sorry, guys. I lost the screen. I don't think we have to play it again. I think you guys get the gist of it, I just don't think, and I like Vivek. I do personally like him. I just don't think he had value to the coalition. Charlie saw it. There's no doubt. His value was in financial freedoms. We're always talking, Barnes and I, about the 4 freedoms. Vivek Ramaswamy, his value was in the financial freedoms. Nobody wants his ideas on H-1B visas. He has said some of the dumbest shit about not having talent, like Trump. He said that. And also he was baited about whether he thinks Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And he said, Jesus was a son of God. He's not the Son of God. It's like, you fucking idiot. Like, you're so smart, right? You're part of what is pitched to us as an advanced race, right? Intellectually. And that's what you came up with? You fucking idiot. Honestly. That was one of the dumbest things I've ever heard anybody say in a white working class, predominantly Christian dominated state. Like, this is like a stupid person, for politically stupid person. Vivek's value to the coalition isn't even in that region. It's not that part of the Rust Belt. All right. So his ass should have picked up and moved somewhere else. All right. And run for governor somewhere else where his brand of right wing, it's not populism at all anymore, is it? I mean, he's very different now than the Vivek who was getting some younger people to participate in Iowa. Right. I mean, it's just terrible. It's horrible. So, yeah. I mean, at this point, it's very hard not to, think that he is. All right, next Rumble rant. I saw TPUSA Tyler saying never platform a Democrat. Platform is not a noun. But also, he must have forgot Charlie had Cenk Unger. Absolutely. Cenk Unger speak at AmFest. Charlie was on a different mission than TP is today. Man, I miss Charlie. I really I gotta confess, guys. And I like Tyler's a nice guy and we get along very well. I just think that Charlie got things other people are just incapable of understanding. You also see these stupid Trump shill Twitter accounts like that one who now quit. The guy was attacking me for a year. I finally decide to tap him back a little bit because he lied about our poll and he got community noted over it, right? And he's sitting there all day with this community note on his thing because I know he's in a chat with the White House fake influencer chat, the Hezbollah chat, the Israel paid Israel chat. I know he's in there. And he's paid to push bullshit. So even if he gets community noted, he's paid to keep it up. It pissed me off. So after a year of watching, because I don't like to punch down, they only get more interaction sometimes than it looks like they should get because they're in those chats. They're in amplification chats. All right. And I still consider it punching down. You're not getting organic activity. You're being boosted by bots and you're being boosted by other wannabe influencers because you're paid to push bullshit. So to me, that's still punching down. They don't have an audience my size, and I don't want to turn people on as stupid people who are out there gaining attention by preying on your biases. That's what they're doing. And so I normally don't. But this pissed me off. And it was over the Massey poll. It was over the Kentucky poll. So finally, after a year, I finally responded to this guy. And yeah, I whack him. But to me, politics is a combat sport. You want to go after like my 20-year-old drug addiction all day, it's in my feed, like I'm going to come after you. All right. And not on that. I'm saying like, if you're going to do that, you don't expect me to like hit you back hard or something. So in my mind, I barely flicked this little pussy and he just cries like a baby. He quits his podcast. He starts pulling down like mass posts. He just went bonkers, cried to me in a DM, unblocked me so he could cry to me in a DM about how he once looked up to me. All right. I kid you not. The other loser who is frequently mentioned in the chat, made fun of in the chat, like he got on his knees in Phoenix, guys. Like I'm glad my wife was there. I was like, because it definitely was. I told somebody I'd go to their party. I knew it was like, listen, you may be surprised how many of these like conservative activists are actually gay. Quietly, Milo's right about that. I'm sorry, it's true. It's like an open secret thing. And I didn't want to go to this thing. I was like, Mark, you're coming with me, but I was invited, and I'm like, all right, I'll stop by because I like the guy a lot. He's a really cool guy. We go way back. We got some funny stories together. But I knew what the crowd was going to be like there, and I was like uncomfortable by how much this guy was like kissing my ass. And I'm so glad I had my wife with me because I'm like, dude, like get off the floor. Like, this is gross. I'm uncomfortable. Like, I kid you not. Anyway, that whole group just sits there and, for a year since the Iranian strikes, the Epstein file stuff, they've been like taking shots at me. I go flick this little bitch one time back and he melts down, cries like a baby. Bro, it's a contact sport. You think you were just going to be able to attack somebody forever and then eventually they weren't going to attack back? And he just totally caved under the pressure of an attack. It was hilarious. And I didn't even respond to him in the DM. I'm just like, bro, cancel your podcast that nobody watches anyway. And like, good, get fucking lost, because all you're doing is deluding people. It's like a lot of these people are like aspiring to be Bill Mitchell, or they're aspiring to be me. And I mean the old Bill Mitchell, when people actually used to watch Bill Mitchell's show and shit. But he's another one, by the way, who's in all the Hezbollah chats, and he's another one. The idiot got like 6,000 likes on a tweet about blaming the retailers for gouging gas prices. These people know nothing about anything they speak about on social media. Retailers can't gouge. The profit margin for retailers is next to nil. It's all about volume. The only gouging going on is like the gas tax schemes, like the one Michael Francesi ran for the Colombo family in the 80s. That was gouging, but it wasn't really. It was just that he would move around these companies and run up these tax bills and never pay them. So basically he was pocketing the tax that all these retailers have to, especially again, like some of these states have exorbitant amount of tax for these retailers on gas. It's like the idea you could even make it, oh my God, the strait's been open for 3 days. This is just gouging now. Well, dummy, like when he tweeted that, the day before was the last day that barrels that went through the strait before the strait was closed arrived at their destination. Like they have no idea how the supply chain works with energy at all. They have no idea about anything. But yeah, I find this kind of funny, your comment, because I just feel like, where am I going with this? Those guys are constantly saying, well, fuck Kennedy. He wasn't MAGA anyway. He was never MAGA anyway. Politics is a game of addition. Charlie always understood that you don't not talk to your opponents. JD Vance was a true convert. You don't want JD anymore? All of those, we just went over the Ohio River Valley. We just went over Mahoning County. Those are all recent Democrats who changed and voted for Trump. They all voted for Barack Obama. I mean, we've done this a million times. Charlie knew that. You don't dismiss those people. You don't not talk to people. You don't not debate people. And you don't run these purification tests that Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and all of those Israel firsters, because they're all taking the 7K post money. And that's kind of like a joke, an inside joke. And it's not all getting 7K, but like that's more money than any of these little losers have ever seen in their life. Like to me, that's just, it's peanuts, honestly. Like they're pikers. So they don't have any clients that they do actual services for, or consulting for. They don't have any actual polling that they do. It's not real. One of them does say he's a pollster and has a polling company. It was horrible in 2024. It's a joke. Total joke. And yes, we all know who that is. So while we wait for some of the Rumble rants to feed through, but I agree with you, K-Cap. I mean, I do feel like I've really been thinking a lot about this lately. I miss Charlie a lot, because there were really, as much as lip services, so many of these people paid to it. There were really so few people. And Jack Posobiec's one of them. Charlie was one of them. Not only do you want these people, you need them. You need them. And by the way, you should be, at this point, when you know it's going to be a bad national environment for you, you should be using it as a perfect opportunity to get rid of any part of your coalition that is hindering the growth of your coalition. Like neocons are coalition parasites, and they hinder the growth of your coalition. While you have the opportunity, get rid of them and trade them for all of the people that K-Cap's talking about on Rumble that Charlie understood you needed, right? Bring all of those people in and cut those other fuckers loose before they do to your coalition for good what they have done to everyone else that has come before you. They have destroyed every coalition they have ever been a part of. They have ever been able to latch onto. They're not even Remoras who attach to the shark, like I was talking about on Monday. They're not even Remoras. They're just disgusting parasites. That's what they are. Remora serve a function for the shark. Neocons serve no function for the coalition. If you got rid of Bill Kristol and Mark Levin for good, you know how many more voters you'd get in Saginaw, in Genesee, in Macomb? Hell, apparently even Oakland, where Mike Rogers ran behind Donald Trump, even though it's supposedly it is. And yet Donald Trump still outperformed Mike Rogers in that county. How weird. Get rid of them while you still can before it's too late. And then you're just going to lose both. That's what's going to happen because they always bail on the coalition they kill. They always bail on it anyway. So you're going to wind up losing in both anyway. They'll go where they feel they can wield more power. If you're useless to them, you're useless to them. That's what the Democrats were smart to throw out neocons. They were absolutely brilliant. Never again. You're not allowed to back. You're out of here. And that's it. And since they threw them out after Vietnam, they've never brought him back. They've never allowed him back. Looks, I did pre-order my own, by the way. Again, another little surge and burn it down. This is awesome. Back again. It's been number one for days again. Back with the new surge and back to it. Nothing but love for you guys on this. This is just so cool. I did see something come down in locals. Jazz win Utah 57. World War III is the most popular of the World War, but World War XI, the rise of Netanyahu as the most unpopular of the World Wars. Jazz, could you imagine if a Republican said what Ilhan Omar said? You would still be hearing about it incessantly in the media. You would never get over it. It would be a gaffe that would stay with that person forever. And yes, her excuse, and she corrected it right away. And her excuse is she was just reading along. But guys, I mean, I'm never going to read two dashes after World War II as World War XI. As World War II, as World War XI. Never. Because I know there were not 11 world wars. And I'm always going to see those two dashes as a two. World War XI. It's just because she's not written. Can we just say it out loud? That's not a fucking American. We have all of these very un-American and not assimilated people now serving in Congress. She has no idea about our history. She has no idea. She thinks she does. She has no idea about American history. She is a total ignoramus when it comes to American history. The daughter of a death dealer. A death squad, guys. The colonel in a death squad. That's Ilhan Omar. That's her daddy. Yardach said something that's so brilliant here. Tip on locals. Democrats want to accumulate power. Republicans want to accumulate wealth. That's why Dems will always win. Oh my God. That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic and very true. This is going to be a one. CK Dolores, 1, 2, 3. This shit show roller coaster never ends, does it? So sick of the D's getting power and blowing shit up, yet R's get it and find principles where principles never existed. WTF is that? We got a capital full of effing pussies. My head's exploding every day. I feel your pain. And I hear you loud and clear. I hear it every day. And I really don't. I'm at a point now, guys, where it's hard to be a pollster. I feel so bad for the voter, the Trump voter particularly. They tried. What else are they supposed to do? Because we're going to get to a point where there's just one more thing that they're going to decide is the right thing to do, and that's going to be terrible for us. It all goes really bad for us, guys, when the right realizes that it just doesn't work for them anyway. It doesn't work. It doesn't matter. If they win elections, they still lose. They got majorities on high courts. They somehow still lose very important cases. Eventually, they're going to come to the conclusion that the system as it is designed to operate does not operate for them anymore. And once that happens, all hell breaks loose. It's just straight up hard to see. Rich, in a worst case scenario, how blue can the South get in 2028? Dem supermajority in Congress? In 28, it would be hard for the Senate. But how blue can it get for president? Blue. I've been warning for a long time now, and Mississippi is a great example. Everyone looks at it as such a deeply red state. Well, Trump turned it redder again, but Republicans at the statewide level have not been doing great in Mississippi, and that's because it is incredibly polarized racially. And once upon a time, whites would vote by damn near the same margins that for Republicans that blacks would vote for Democrats. That is no longer the case. That's why Todd Barely was reelected. We've seen 3 5-point gubernatorial elections, especially if you have a depressed Republican turnout in the eastern part of the state, because that entire western border, which is populated, is just filled with Democrat and black belt counties. And by the way, look at Donald Trump's performance in those black belt western counties in Mississippi, particularly, and compare them with recent, even Republican Senate margins. It's a problem. I've been warning people for a long time. Mississippi, South Carolina, definitely North Carolina. And I don't want to say that's my state. I'm about to have a Democratic governor and a Democratic senator and a state Supreme Court that's liberal again, because we're going to lose the court at this rate, that we're almost certain to lose the court. I don't want to say that, but it's true. Georgia, it's the playbook for Democrats. And Barnes was right that you had these like country club Republican gentlemen make deals with the gentrified, racist white class, the Democratic whites. They came together, the whites on the left overseeing black precincts and black communities, black areas, and convincing them basically to vote against their own interests, and to keep them on the Democratic plantation. But it was this alliance that was really meant to keep populism from rising in the South. Why? It goes back to Wallace, Huey Long, all of them. That's the ruling class's worst fucking nightmare, is populism rising in the South. That's why Donald Trump does so well in those black belt counties compared to Republicans. It's populism. That's why he does better in Piedmont counties. It's populism. Kevin Phillips got it all down, man. We read it in book club, by the way, The Emerging Republican Majority. We read this before the 24 election to show people what they're going to see and why. Phillips did this many, many years ago after Nixon, 50 plus years before. And yet he gave us a very good roadmap. Were there some things that have changed? Yes. And he couldn't have foreseen mass immigration changing the entire country. He didn't foresee that. Illegal immigration too. But he still showed very much that difference between, this marriage that could happen. And it's a shame, because that's what the promise of Trump's coalition was, to finally break those urban-rural divides, to break those racial divides. And he did. 30% of the black male vote in Texas. Oh my God. Hello? Dude actually won the Hispanic vote in Michigan too, getting out of the South. Crushed it in Georgia. Crushed it. It's how you win independence, by 11 points in the state of Georgia, which he did. Can't do it on the backs of whites anymore. So the longer Republicans stay the country club, Eric Erickson version of the Republican Party, the sooner you will see the South turn bluer. It's a shame. It's really a shame. It's so clear too. I just don't know how anyone can't see it. I really can't. Back to locals. Rich, have you spoken to Phil Lyman? Why does that sound familiar? He's in a runoff with Celeste Malloy in Utah CD3. It's a good opportunity to kick out a neocon. Why, son of a bitch? Why? I think I have spoken to Phil Lyman. That sounds familiar to me. I have to look into that. I'll check that out. Not only is Ilhan Omar not an American, no one that is descended from her or related will ever be one either. Totally agree. Sorry, you can say what you want. I do. There's nothing American about that woman. Nothing. It's not just her religious creed and her religious beliefs and her creed. She's fucking anti-American. She doesn't understand Americanism. And some people never will. They're not from a part of the world that ever will, which is what's been coming. By the way, it's not just a Muslim issue. It's an Eastern issue. It's why it's becoming so obvious with this problem with Israel. Judeo-Christian values. My ass, they just made that word up, guys, a few decades ago. You won't find it before because it didn't exist. They're an Eastern philosophy. That is not a Western philosophy. Our philosophy, Americanism, is unique to Christian principles. You can't separate it. Now, if you go and read Franklin, all the rest, of course, they were very... Franklin was a little bit more, I guess, I don't want to use, I don't know what the right word is. I don't want to say tolerant. He just didn't want anyone barred from public service due to their religion. Like, he meant civil service, by the way, like working as a fucking postman. And that passage that everyone passed around with John Adams, the founders were Zionists. They cut it off right before the sentence where Adams says, yes, I wish you luck in getting your homeland back. And then I would very much like to see you all convert to Christianity. They missed that part. To truly appreciate the American experiment. Do you know if anyone is trying to find a new Charlie? I mean, I do know. And the answer is no. Unfortunately, I know no one can ever take his place, but we are in sad need of someone who can be another Trump whisperer, someone he'll actually listen to take seriously. Is anyone doing anything to combat these corrupt bar associates? We need an answer to Project 65. Did I send my Graham BB stuff to the right place the other day? I don't know. You know what? Let me take a picture of this and send this to Laura because I don't know. That's a good question. She would. But she's not here currently at the moment. So, I probably can't get you an answer right away. Kid's got all this stuff going on. I almost didn't make the show because my kid last minute was like, oh, I got a band concert tonight. And I'm like, well, thanks. I would have rescheduled the show and came to your band concert. And then, of course, she was yapping with the moms over at the dance thing. And I'm like, hello? Like, I just can't eat late anymore, How many cycles is Jim Clyburn still relevant? Honestly, not many more, Blondie. That's a really great question. Not many more. And CK Dolores, I'll get back to you on that. I just sent that to her. I don't know if you heard it, but we'll see what she says. Jim Clyburn's getting old, and when he goes, his machine will go. Harry Reid's machine couldn't stay much longer. I mean, it lingered for a while, but it won't stay around forever. Are Royce White and Flip Chicago Red, Flip Philly Red, the new civil rights leaders for urban blacks? They seem organic for America First values. Blondie, they would be much more effective if the man himself didn't betray his own movement and his own voters. And I hate to say that, but it's like, you can't now expect these guys to be super successful in these already difficult endeavors if you can't go into a building with them and answer the simple question, why is Donald Trump full of shit? Right? You can't, it's hard to defend America First now and MAGA now. It's easier to defend America First because I think there's a very clear distinction being made between them and MAGA, but it's hard, to go in there and say, this is where you really belong and we're for real. If you weren't for real on the Epstein files, if you weren't for real on starting any new wars in the Middle East, if you weren't for real on laser focused on being domestic, president and building up infrastructure in the United States and getting the cost of goods down and getting the cost of living down and getting jobs, domestic jobs booming. Like, he's done none of this. Very difficult for these people who are new to the Trump coalition, non-whites particularly, to go in and defend themselves. It's, like Bill Mitchell got ran off a gap like a little bitch. Yeah, man. These guys, like, using that platform to run for Congress and then not even making the ballot. Where's all that fucking money, dude? According to the FEC, that dude raised $50,000. Okay. And he didn't get on the ballot? All that money came from super chats and, the PayPal me links that went in the thing. Like, where's the money, dude? Sad. All right. 8:12. About that time. I'll let you guys roll. Probably local. See you guys soon. I mean, what's there to talk about here? What's there to really pitch here? With the Massey thing, let's go take a look at it. It's not funded, guys. I hate to say it. I'll refresh it right now. We can look at the refresh together. I think it's at like 25 or something. Super low. I'll make some calls, but I don't think it's at 2150. I at this point don't have any big commitments. Normally we do. The first one, as you can see, it actually did fund more than that because there was a $5,000 commitment made to it. So it funded to the tune of 8.4, basically, which was still shy of it, but I'll pull the trigger on that. We get somewhere close, of course. And we get somewhere close to it, I'll do it. But we are low on it. It's like 2.16, and that's low. That doesn't come close to covering costs. It doesn't. So I'm just being real with you guys. Keeping the public polling project afloat is difficult because, well, you can thank Nikki Haley. People like Nikki Haley. I mean, she did not follow 10 DLC regulations at all in 24, was texting people against 10 DLC regulations in mass. There were mass complaints about it. They cracked down even more. And now the 10 DLC fees are higher. You want to make sure your texts reach people with a reasonably decent delivery rate. You got to pay the piper. It sucks. It really does. But to me, especially in midterms, you can't poll without that mode of collection. And live caller just blows. It's not going to get you any more any higher quality interviews. I still do it because people want it. They want to see it. They want to see it in the methodology statement. But it's honestly, to me, it's not even necessary anymore. But the texting and peer-to-peer, because peer-to-peer is more because you're answering back. So instead of them just click, hey, yeah, sure, you want to take it? That's great. Here, click on this link. You can do it within 24 hours. You can save and continue. Just keep using that same link. And then you instruct them. And that's it. They're done. Some people, they don't even need an instruction. They'll just take the link and they'll roll with it. But when it's peer-to-peer, you're going back and forth and you're paying charges every time you go back and forth. If you're looking at like a survey that's like 30 questions with demographics and you go back and forth like that, the cost, as you can imagine, the cost can rack up, So, yeah, I mean, we need to share this far and wide, contribute what you can, share it far and wide. It's May 6th. That primary is May 19th. We are really coming up on it here. It's May 12 days. And it will take me 4 to 5 days to do this poll because me, it's a district, and I'm going to want to see how it goes for more than a day or two. I don't like that shit. And I would really want it to be like a final poll. So I would come out with this poll the day before the election, So we kind of do need to get moving on this. The other poll didn't really fund either, but nationally, we need to do one once a month. We do. We have to. I mean, want it on RCP, want to help the guys with their aggregates at RCP and DDHQ. We're helping their product by having better quality data in it, and there's that. And also, we're leading the trends and it's cool to watch. And the only way you can really do that consistently is to poll at least once a month. I think once a week is like publicly, I just think it's like overkill. Benchmark poll once a month. We poll basically every day. It's rare because of what we do, with clients and what we do for other people. It's like rare that we aren't polling at a given day. And that's why we're calling it the benchmark. So like the public polling project is doing a benchmark poll once a month. That's the one that gets released. Boy, Trump was lucky, man, that he didn't go into the 30s in this one. If you go and you look at it by day, it's truly remarkable. How is approval rating? Let me see if I can show you that without it. Let me see if I can show you that week. Before we go, let me see if I can show you that week combined modes. Even if I just take the likely voters and like show you the approval rating throughout it. He got so lucky, man. He had and then locals, you guys voted to keep going one more day. And I was like, oh my God, because it actually was worse. It was worse on that next day. But he got lucky because there was like one good bump for it, Let's see, the 25th through the 28th at least. Let me see if I can do this and do it with, so it makes sense here. Where is it? Right track, wrong track. There's okay. Here is the approval. Is it in the right order? It is. Line. Let's see if I can do it. Longitudinal weekly. Let's do it daily. Option count. I'd really rather have the sum or the total. Let's see. Let me see. I'll see if I can change it in a second. Oh my God. Is that strongly disapproved? It is. Okay. So there's some, because this fades off. There was one day where you'll see strongly approved pop. It's weird because a lot of these days are trickles and you should ignore it. Let me see if I can just isolate these days. Excuse me. Let me see if I could just isolate these days. Layout and options. Let me see if I can get the values. Filter by. Let me see if I can do it with the days. Can I filter by the days? Come on. It should be current date. There we go. Oh, no, that's like literally the current date right now. No, I don't want to do that. By completed time. Where is it? Come on now. I know you got to be here. Completed time. It would have to be the 24th to the 28th. I'd have to do it in that. And I don't know if I can do it. I mean, I'm trying to add it through logic, layout and options. There should be an X. I don't know why. There's a Y-axis value, Bon. There's not an X, so I need the X-axis to be able to minimize it. Either way, I can zoom in and I can show it to you anyway. It's just that some kind of fall off. Let me cancel that real quick. It's going to give you the percentages and the counts anyway. It's just that there are some people that take it. They got excluded anyway. It didn't matter. There's over the course of in the May, I guess their things were not turned off. So they came back way later and took it. But they're not in the survey that we actually released. So I can see where it spikes for a strongly approved. There's one that day. So let me just show it to you and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right. Remove this and you'll see how lucky he got lucky with the dates that we did. He just got lucky. Otherwise he'd have been in trouble. He'd have been in big trouble. Okay. So ignore this big spike over here and anything beyond it to the right. These are the 4 days, the 24th to the 28th. All right. And actually it's the 29th actually. Ignore this because those are people that just later came back. They were not included, but in this is the raw. So you'll see them there. This is the orange line, which was strongly disapproved. And you can see it was always around 40%, 44% on the 26th of April. It was 44%. It gets as high as 46% on the 29th of April. And actually, there's quite a few responses there. We can keep those days. There's one day where there was a pop in strongly approved. All right. Which was remarkable because basically nobody had taken it, that at that time. So it just looked like it was a big pop. It was just noise and it ironed out. Otherwise, if you take, where's the other disapproved down here? I mean, you take a day like this, you're looking at huge disapproval and his approval rating would have been, on some of these days. Oh my God. Here. Oh my God. It would have been 21 and 37%, 36%, so some of these, oh my God, there you go. 37%, 38%. That's not good. So he just got lucky with that one day where there was a pop in the, not only approved, but strongly approved, which helped him out. It's the only reason he got to 20% strongly approved or 22% or whatever it was. It's the only reason he did was because of one day of noise, which was good for him. It wasn't real. It was noise. And then we stopped it. Otherwise, as you can see, it's all strongly disapproved from there. And he got lucky as shit, man. That's all there is to it. We did not do that on purpose to help him. Just so I'm clear, that was not intended. It's just locals. If you remember correctly, I was like, what do you guys want to do? Do you want to keep going one more day? And then we did. That's why we went to the 28th, capped it there. The 29th was awful. The day after, I think I even said something on the show the next day. I was like, oh, the next day is no better. It was terrible. What was it? It was 46% strongly disapprove, 13% somewhat disapprove. That's 59. That's almost a 60% disapproval rating. Strongly approve, 21. So 3760. That's what his approval rating was on the 29th of April. 3760. It's a good thing we stopped on the 28th, Donald, Mr. President. All right, with that in mind, I think I got all of them right. It's depressing being let down by Trump after being on the train from the start, but it's even more depressing for those who jumped on in 2024. It's so that's so tough for them. I agree. I really sympathize, especially if they're younger or they're first timers. I just really sympathize with them. Owen says, love the new time slot. If all these people on calls echo my post from today, then when the GOP Vivek candidates are tossed in the trash, will someone communicate why that happened and who it was that had the power to make them win or lose? Yep. And everybody on locals, I would suggest, I don't know if you have read Owen's post. Actually, I can put it in the chat here for people right now. It's good. It says the bloody midterms of 26. All right. It's on my thing too, so you can go read it. Let me send it to everybody, actually, Owen. This is, I hope you don't mind me doing this. You don't mind me doing this, right? I mean, you put it on locals. This is the perspective that you should make Republicans paying in the midterms in order to get them to wait, in order to make them wake up. Like, they have to be heard. And honestly, sometimes there's validity to this argument. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to a party is for them to get their ass kicked. That's happened many times to many parties. So, I shared it, Owen, across basically all platforms. Oh, except for YouTube. I did not share it on YouTube. You'll have to read it on locals, guys, but it's free. It's not behind a paywall. All right. Actually, you know what? I mean, it's kind of long. Otherwise, I would read it, but go over it and see what you guys think. I mean, let me read something from it real quick. All right. The midterm is going to be painful, but a lesson must be taught. If I were an Ohioan, I would vote blue for governor. I'll explain the logic and position for those who think it's crazy. We have to enforce our politics and our positions and make it clear that the GOP position is untenable. The candidates they put forward and push through primaries against the base are no longer winnable. They give us results and who we want, or they get nothing. The electability argument that the Rhino neocons have always used is now on the other foot. Vivek can win the primary in Ohio, but push voters will not vote for him in the general. And there are more people that did not vote in the primary or did not show up for him in the general. That's just going to, and you can actually see it clear as day. They need us to win, and we are the spoke in their wheel. Sorry, but that candidate isn't America first. He's not electable. We can demonstrate that. Without us, they will simply get stomped. It doesn't matter how many donors and Jewish millionaires like Marianne Madelson support you. Additionally, the donors they have only donate for access. And once it becomes clear that they aren't viable and they know they won't get access because they won't be in office, many donors will dry up. Votes are our only lever. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's funny, Owen, that you're the one who argued this because, you scare a lot of people in our book club, but you're making the argument that it has to be that way. Votes are our only lever, and legitimate danger is the next two sections. But you know what? Hell, fuck it. I'm just going to keep reading real quick. Votes are our only lever. Americans have no lobby to support their interests. It's supposed to be the public pollster, but I'm all alone out here. The voting groups that make up a winning coalition, millennial and Gen X men, middle and working class families, are also totally broke, having been squeezed by inflation and the affordability crisis. Grassroots really have no money to donate. They're struggling to pay their groceries and gas prices and make car payments. Owning a home is just something they joke about now. They don't have the monetary juice to squeeze for campaigns to support what they actually vote for. The only thing they have to give or to keep is their vote. This has been something I've talked about for a while. The GOP has relied for so long on how the left will actively harm their base's interests and what they care about in order to argue that even though the GOP won't help you and will even hurt you a little bit or a lot, the other side will do worse. So yes, Democrats will break laws and violate your rights when in office, and when we are in office, we do nothing. Countdown to your next persecution and further degradation. Never any reversals, only instantiation of leftist victories and changes. Think of Obamacare, lawfare, politically captured and weaponized agencies, anti-white persecution, and DEI policies. The only victories the right has won that are meaningful or lasting haven't come through legislative or executive action, but Supreme Court decisions that reversed abortion, preserved gun rights, or slightly curtailed the administrative state. Everything executive has been ephemeral and can be and will be immediately reversed with a Democratic president, and the legislature is totally hostile to their voters and base desires and platform. Now, things have reached to such a point because of the fecklessness and controlled opposition of American conservatism since the latter half of the 20th century that not actively warring and pushing their agenda is actively harming Americans. And the argument of the other side is even worse. Hits hardened hearts, falls on deaf ears, right? I mean, it's not good enough to be bad, but not as bad as the left. There's not enough evidence to differentiate GOP from leftists. All their posturing and speaking out is just theater. It's professional wrestling, K-fob, legitimate danger. The danger ahead is that Democrats will structurally change the country and centralize their power and politically neuter Americans to the point they no longer have a peaceful means to change things politically via court packing, constitutional amendments, judicial tyranny, and amnesty for foreigners, as well as reopening the floodgates for millions more to come in. However, all of that will happen regardless if there isn't genuine opposition and leaders willing to fight fire with fire and wield power to accomplish the political agenda of America First voters. The GOP has long relied on control of party apparatus and ability to pick primary winners in this prisoner's dilemma they set up with the left, who they philosophically are more aligned with on issues that America First platform cares about, to force people they don't represent to vote for them. As such, I will vote Democrat in a general over any GOP candidate like my own Senator Langford in Oklahoma. It's purely a game theory power politics calculation based on logic. It's fine for others to disagree, but my position is a growing one and has to be wrestled with. And the fact that it does is exactly the point of having it. If my group is big enough to ensure that you don't get elected without us, or to ensure you lose if you don't keep faith or actively suborn my politics after getting elected, then that is enough to change the dynamics. It's simple. We get what we want, or you get nothing, come what may. If we have to burn it down, we will act accordingly. Burn it down, baby. Burn it down. See what I mean? Like, that's a growing argument. That's a legitimate argument. And this idea like, oh, the left is worse, is not going to fucking play for all those reasons. Now, add another component to that. The fact that so many of those, let's talk about Ohio, so many of those voters in the Ohio River Valley that Republicans have apparently lost again. They're not Republicans. They haven't been Republicans for you. They haven't been solid Republican, voters and, solid conversions. These are ancestral Democratic votes. The idea that you're going to convince them that they're way worse is just, it's not going to happen, guys. It's not. I don't think you guys understand how bad in the minds of voters the Republican Party is, especially post-Epstein now and post the war. They just look like, what they look like. I don't have to say it out loud. Even Donald Trump himself looks like Bibi's bitch. That's how the country views him, whether you like it or not. And it's sad because he was the one who was not supposed to be viewed like that, when the party always was viewed as the party of big business, Owen's right, the Jewish donor class. Like, it's true. So you're going to have to contend with his position because that group will just stay home. You need young men. He's a young man. You need him. You can't keep fucking them over and then trying to shame them into voting. It's just not going to work forever anymore. It's not. This is how parties die. How the Tories doing in England lately? How they been? Who? Right. What's the name of that party David Cameron used to be the leader of? Theresa May. Fuck out of here. They're done. They're nothing. And they blew the best opportunity for conservatism since Margaret Thatcher. Actually, they beat Margaret Thatcher's record, didn't they? I think they did, actually. They did. I'm pretty sure that one election did beat Margaret Thatcher's highest number of conservative seats. So stupid. All right, it's 8:32. I'm going to kick rocks. I'm going to get out of here. This was good, though, right? This was a good show. This was good talk. Good talk. And thanks for sharing that, Owen, because I'm glad I read that. Maybe give some people some insight. You know, you just don't get to take shit for granted. And by the way, the same people who are arguing with points like Owen's making and with people like Owen who are making them are the very same people who have for years been saying things like Democrats take black people for granted. There's a Blexit that has to happen. Fucking hypocrites. You're hypocrites. All right? And don't get me wrong. I am terrified of what's going to happen if Democrats take over again. I am. It sucks when you're someone who has skin in the game. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. Thank you. Excellent show, Rich. Appreciate that, John. I'm glad you're here. I hope so. I thought we had a good talk here, you know. Links to everything. You guys don't need me to tell you what we need, you know. Just don't forget to follow my Instagram. If you haven't, join Instagram, man. And if you're on Instagram, join the gram at peoples_pundit. The same it is on X. I need to start pushing the gram on X more. I mean, I don't know how I can't get my Instagram follower higher, man. And I have been doing a lot of shorts. The problem is I leave so many shorts off of Instagram because so many of, like, a lot of young kids, follow, and people we know. And it's like, and then their parents follow me. And it's like, I can't put up some of those F-bombs on Instagram, man. Laura gets mad. So-and-so's mother saw that. They're coming for a birthday party next week. Damn it. You invited them for the 4th of July. Right, Laura? And I'm sure they're going to hear, their delicate little ears are going to hear me drop an F-bomb at the barbecue. Okay? Come on. Never said I'd be perfect. All right, none but love for you guys. Don't forget, links are in the description. Go check it out. Kentucky 4, share it far and wide, burn it down, do your thing. You know, I'm going to leave it at that, and I will see you guys soon. I hope you have a great rest of your night. Thanks for watching. Cue the music. There it is. All the best.